Good afternoon and welcome to the Hoosier Huddle podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Along with me is T.J. Inman, and we're back previewing Indiana's spring football game. Right now, weather pending, it'd be the first spring game IU's had, at least according to the Indy Star, in 5 years. That's open to the public. So excited about that. Spring games. We'll talk about what makes a successful spring game, and then we'll also talk about what we're watching. We've broken down, keys to a successful spring game on the website, as well as a matchup to watch and some numbers that matter as well. And, we'll get into all of those things. But TJ, how are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, excited to talk about the spring game. Obviously, hoping that it happens as planned. I think as we kind of have approached this, there's so many new pieces to this IU football team that I think everybody's just hoping to be able to see some of that. It's important not to take sweeping conclusions from it, but I think any little bit of information that we can glean uh, is welcome, given how closed off things have been so far. Which that's not a complaint; it's just a reality. We really don't have any information coming from the spring practices, and it's a obviously new head coach, new coaching staff, and largely a new roster playing in new schemes. So we pretty much have no information about the team. So whatever we can get from the spring game, we're going to be happy to get. Uh, but again, we're just hoping that the weather doesn't spoil things.
Yeah, so IU announced the setup for the spring game earlier this week. We'll get into the scoring here in a little bit, but the game is going to be on BTN. Friend of the show, Rhett Lewis, will be the analyst on there with a couple other announcers, so that's good. Um, it should be streaming on the Fox Sports app, and then I know it should be on BTN Plus the day after. That's at least what it was with Ohio State, Penn State, Purdue. Um, Fans are allowed on the east side of the stands. Um, Gates are opening up at 6:30. Kickoff is at 8 o'clock. There'll be performances by the Marching Hundred, schedule posters, enter to win various prizes, various games, photo booths. So it looks like, this is what a spring game is supposed to be. It's supposed to give you a little bit of tease of football that we miss right now, and then get into the summer, transfer portal, recruiting, all that stuff. And then the team also comes out for warm-ups at 7:20. All of this, though, is, weather pending. Forecast looked good a week ago, but as they say here in Indiana, if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes, it'll change. And it's been changing more or less every 15 minutes on various weather apps. So, TJ, let's get into what we're watching this spring game. What's one thing that you're watching that you could take away for Thursday night?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, not important necessarily, but for me, intriguing would be a good word for it, is going to be Curtis Rourke, Taven Jackson, Tyler Cherry, those three guys. How do they look operating this new offense? Um, it's very important, and you've seen this in other spring games. It's hard to take a whole lot from the play of the quarterbacks because they know they're not going to get hit. It's a very comfortable existence for the quarterbacks in spring games. They're going to be wearing whatever color of jersey IU is going to have the quarterbacks wear that lets everybody else know, don't touch this guy. So that part is going to be, it takes some of the evaluation away because how a player plays under actual pressure from a defensive line or linebackers is very different than how they might play when they know they're not going to get hit. However, you can kind of tell who's got a command of the offense, who's decisive with their throws, who's accurate with their throws, and we might see some deep shots as well. Trying out this new wide receiver core. So I'm interested to see how the reps break down. I imagine it'll be pretty even on Thursday night between those guys and whatever other players they're going to give action to at quarterback. And then interested to see just is Tyler Cherry look like he might be ready? Has Curtis Rourke clearly separated himself? Is Taven Jackson in the conversation for backup or for starter? Sort of interested to see kind of how that plays out. And then also on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side, the battle between the wide receivers and the secondary. Wide receiver room, supplemented a good group. E.J. Williams, Anderson Kobe, Donovan McCauley, and Omar Cooper. Bring those guys back and then supplement them with Elijah Surratt, Miles Price, Miles Cross. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody else there. Keyshawn Williams. Uh, you know, that's a really strong group. That's one of the best wide receiver rooms in the Big Ten. I'd put them up there against anybody outside of Ohio State and Oregon, probably. I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying. That group of wide receivers in this offense going against a revamped secondary that brings back some good young pieces, along with like Nick Toomer, established veterans, and then brings in a couple of guys expected to start at safety in Sean Asbury and Terry Jones. So, a revamped secondary, a revamped wide receiver core. Who's going to win that battle? And those are some that, you can kind of tell because they're going to be running routes at full speed. They're going to be throwing the ball at full speed. So even if it's not the most physical tackling, you're still going to be able to see how those defensive backs cover the wide receivers and how the wide receivers try to get open. So I think that's going to be a really fascinating part to watch as well. And that's going to be pretty much every play because I would imagine you're not going to see a ton of running the ball up the middle in the spring game.
No, I don't think so. You don't want one, you don't want to get guys hurt, and
Right.
two, it's not an inside run period or drill or anything like that. For me, it's the mechanics, the game mechanics. Um, how do people look in a game situation? How's the coaching staff handle all of this? When we've been at practice, it is like night and day from Allen. Not saying that Allen ran a bad practice, but there was no music. It's just
Mm-hmm.
football sounds. It's coaches coaching, whistles, players bashing into each other and stuff like that. It just sounds like football practice, and not a rock concert. Players have said that they've been super efficient in getting their work done. You get in, get your work done, get out, and all that stuff. So, I mean, we'll see. I want to see how that works. I want to see, how they trot out special teams. If they do special teams,
Yep.
I would like them to not do what Purdue did, and which was 1v1 two-hand touch. I want to see people actually tackle and stuff like that. I think that's helpful. But I am looking at the game mechanics. How they run out on the field, how they line up. The personnel pairings are going to be a little different, but who's jumping off sides? When are you taking timeouts? Who's coach demeanor of coaches on the sideline, how you're warming up, how you're going through, the drills pregame and all that stuff. To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall. Players wise, my second thing I'm watching is what holes does IU need to fill, and that's the portal opened yesterday. Obviously, Indiana's needs, and we've talked about them a lot, defensive tackle in that middle of the defensive line, and then probably in the secondary. and maybe another offensive lineman. But now's the time to see, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, you have your starting right guard is also your backup left guard. You need some more depth pieces and things like that. It's a good
Mhm.
chance to see, um, what depth pieces could perform and things like that. So that's what I'm watching as well.
Yeah, and on those additions, it wasn't a spring transfer portal addition quite, but effectively serves as one. Indiana adding Sedarius Doss from Austin P, uh, FCS All American that Indiana pursued for a little while and ultimately was able to land his commitment here recently. A guy that's expected to play kind of a nickel corner type role for Indiana. So they did add one piece there, but you're right. I think you probably will see trying to bring in a veteran safety, probably. And then, the clear glaring hole is the interior of the defensive line. Um, there's not enough beef in the middle of the defensive line right now for Indiana. Not enough depth. Um, that that's a position group that even if you don't lose anybody else, and even if you stay completely healthy, which is unrealistic, I think Indiana's at least two bodies, capable bodies, short at defensive tackle, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to add more than two. That's going to be tough to do because guess what? A ton of other programs need the same exact thing.
Yeah, I mean that's it. They've talked about it on national podcasts that defensive tackle is at a premium position.
Yeah.
So your evaluation, especially Signetti's portal philosophy that he prioritizes production over potential. To get a productive defensive tackle at even if it's from the group of five level, which he has
Yeah.
plucked a lot of his transfers from, it's gonna cost you a premium. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting to follow. Not saying it can't be done, um, and but it's gonna be it's gonna be somebody's market, and it's not a buyer's market.
It would not be shocking to see a couple of guys from the FCS um, get targeted by Indiana. Guys that have produced at the FCS level that the coaching staff is confident can translate that to the Big Ten at a somewhat respectable level to provide quality depth. Uh, that that might be a bit of a market inefficiency that they're able to go get, given that they do have connections in that level of football. Um, and Sedarius Doss, prime example, FCS level player that's stepping up to the Big Ten. So we'll see. Um, we'll see how that goes. First things first, though, it's looking at this spring game, finishing up your spring period, and then I'm sure what they are currently doing and will continue to do is evaluate, is there anybody else that we're going to lose? Are there any other positions besides what we just discussed that we need to address? And then how do we get that done? And the spring game is going to be that final piece of data that they have to determine the path forward into the summer. Um, it's kind of your last chance to add to your roster uh, before fall camp, realistically.
Yeah,
Um, so it's a very important time, in the spring games, kind of like I said, that last piece of data. Um, Another part of it that I'm interested to see is just the transfers, coming in, and not any one guy in particular because there's so many to choose from. But we've mentioned the wide receivers. I don't think you'll see a bunch out of the running backs, just given the nature of a spring game. I, I don't think you'll see all that much telling from them. But it will be good to see, those that position group, which is so different than it was a year ago. See those guys on the field. But I think I'm really interested to see the linebacking core of Walker, Fisher, McDonald, guys that came from James Madison and Troy, stepping up to the Big Ten. They've all talked about, especially Jalen Fisher, talked about
Aiden
uh,
Fisher.
Aiden Fisher. Sorry, Jalen Walker, Aiden Fisher, um, starting to prove we belong at this level.
Yeah.
Um, and Thursday night is their first chance to show that to IU fans and to the public at large. So I'm interested to see that group play because it's definitely going to be a totally different group of linebackers than what IU had a season ago.
Yeah, I don't know if Jalen Walker's going to play. I think
That's
he's been
true.
held out of breed returning from surgery.
Yeah.
But let's go through the scoring here a little bit before talking about what makes a successful spring game. Um, IU it'll be offense versus defense. Offense will be
Yeah.
in red. Defense will be in white, and the quarterbacks are wearing the black uniforms. A touchdown is going to be worth 6 points. They are kicking extra points, which is another battle to watch. Is the place kicker, and I mean, even if you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too. Um, so you can watch those, how the
Hmm.
mechanics on that work. Field goals, 3 points. Turnover gained is going to be 3 points for the defense.
Yeah.
The defensive stop, which I assume is any drive that ends in a punt, is three
Yep.
points. I don't know if you could double up on it and say, hey, turnover, defensive stop equals 7. And then, of course, the safety is 2 points.
Yeah.
So, not the worst scoring system that we've seen in a spring game.
No.
Pretty straightforward and stuff like that. So, uh, to me, TJ, I'll start off. What makes a successful spring game? And I think Coach Signetti said it best: get out of it healthy.
Hmm.
Um, that is the number one goal. Get out of it healthy. You do not want a major injury, especially this late in spring. You're talking about mid to late April. If you have a catastrophic injury, it is going to kill your season. Um, so keep guys healthy. You still want to see tackling and all that stuff, but get out of it. Get out of it healthy. That you have all these players available to train and get better over the summer instead of rehabbing, um, and trying to get back on the field. So, what's
Yeah.
the number one key for your successful spring game?
Well, I certainly agree with you and with all the coaches. Obviously, staying healthy is going to be a key point. I think it's important for Indiana just from a fan base standpoint, and this is perception and kind of program momentum only goes as far as, the next failed recruitment or um, the next drive where you give up a touchdown. I mean, it doesn't really last very long, but I think going into a long period of inactivity from at least the public's point of view, I think it'd be really important for Indiana's offense to at least show signs of life.
I agree. You
Um,
can't go out there and throw 9 passes into the dirt
yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah. Now, look, there's always the double-edged sword. If the offense goes out there and scores on every drive, you're gonna look around at the end of the spring game and say, "Oh no, our defense sucks. We we are terrible, and we need to bring in 10 more transfers on defense." If the offense goes out and goes 3-and-out and throws a bunch of interceptions, yay, the defense looks great, but the offense looks the exact same as it has for the past couple of years. So it's a
Yeah,
double-edged sword, but I think it's more important for Indiana fans to see signs of life and some progress and some fun on the offensive side of the ball.
I agree.
Uh,
And I think,
some good play from the quarterbacks, some explosive plays from wide receivers, some speed being shown on the field from your
yep,
wide receivers. Uh, accuracy from quarterbacks, some deep throws that have a chance of being completed, things like that. I think would just a few signs of life. I think would go a long way towards saying, look, progress is being made. This is proof of the concept happening on the field.
Yeah, and I also think to that point, you could be more successful with a good offense than a good defense and a bad offense.
Sure.
I think in today's college football, yeah, you obviously want a good defense, but the game is so geared towards the offensive side of the ball and makes it difficult for defenses to even great defenses be successful to where, you know, in order to have a shot, your offense probably has to put up at least 28 points a game.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, to your point, shows signs of life. Don't come out here and run a Walt Bell offense and people go up same old stuff, different guy, same results and stuff like that. Look, if you're throwing now, who knows? It could be 40-mile-an-hour winds and raining sideways, and Curtis Rourke goes 3 for 10 for 24 yards. You can't read that much into
Right.
it, and stuff like that. But if you do get good weather and it's not impossible to throw the ball, chuck it around the yard. You don't have to run a triple reverse pass or anything like that. Run your route tree, run your simple routes. See what see what see what your ones could do against ones.
Yeah.
And I would be much more freaked out if the offense struggled than the defense struggled. I think it would be a much easier fix, to get. Hey, you also have James Carpenter's not playing; he's hurt. Jalen Walker's been out. You've got some pieces missing on defense. Where offense, you're pretty much all there, in that.
Yeah.
I want to see. I want to see what Tyler Cherry does. It's a chance to build your depth too. This is the
Hmm.
first season, in a long time where you go into the season going, you kind of feel comfortable with your backup. I mean, look, Taven Jackson didn't have a great year last year, but you're not throwing a true freshman into the fire,
Right.
um, if your starter gets hurt. And then I do want to. Tyler Cherry comes with a lot of hype, local guy. This is a chance to, hopefully that community comes to the game, and you could showcase him a little bit. There's nothing to lose. Like Signetti said, no, there are no losers in the spring unless you're at Purdue. But there are no losers in the spring, and so go build some depth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that the important factors, or the important outcomes for Indiana would be encouraging signs from the offense and health coming out of it. Those would be, a successful spring game for Indiana football. And then the third point would just be something you mentioned earlier, kind of the fundamentals being shown. Lack of stupid penalties like pre-snap penalties, showing which indicates a lack of focus, right? I mean,
Yeah,
a lack of discipline. So having those minimized, uh, and just from a coaching standpoint, it would be really ill-advised to take any play calling that you see and come to conclusions about Brian Haynes or Coach Shanahan. That would be really ill-advised to say, "Oh, I didn't like the play calling in the spring game." Well, okay. We have no idea what the directives are from Coach Signetti or from these coordinators as far as what exactly they want to work on, because they're going through a plan as well. There are
yeah,
certain things that they are trying to evaluate as well. So this is not going to be, hey, this is going to be just like our 15 play opening script for the regular season opener. It's not the same thing.
no,
But I do think situationally, it could be telling to see, hey, on this 3rd and 4 on the 20-yard line, you know, there was a creative play run by the offense that resulted in, a first down or a touchdown. Little things like that, could be positive indicators for IU fans to take as well.
Yeah, and it's a chance to mix and match your personnel too, and try
Yep.
stuff out that hey,
Yep.
maybe we want McCulley and Anthony Miller and EJ Williams and Elijah Surratt in the goal line,
Yep.
package to go big receiver. Or, what does it look like if we go Miles Price, Keyshawn Williams, Omar Cooper, and stuff
Mhm.
like now's the chance to, because there's nothing at stake. If you throw a pick on that play, or it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. You tried it. It's
Right. Right.
better to learn now than against FIU in August. So
Yeah.
you
You
know,
you mentioned last point here. You mentioned briefly on special teams. It based on the scoring, they are going to have place kicking. So that'll be a little something to watch as well. You
yep.
know, just just in case there are, you know, if there's a great performance from one of them and a poor performance from another, you know, maybe that moves the needle
I mean, you
towards
saw
one
it
of the
in last
kickers,
year. You
Yeah,
saw it in last year's spring game. The
right.
kicker struggled. I
Yep.
I, I forgot the stats off the top of my head, but they all missed a couple of field goals.
Yep.
So it's people say sometimes people say spring results don't matter. Well, kicking field goal against a rush with people in the crowd,
Yep.
with potentially some weather that would really be more like the fall in
Yep.
Bloomington,
Yep.
um, could be telling. More
Yep.
telling than what you see on offense and defense, because there's no
Right.
special formations, or there's no.
Yep.
I mean, maybe on pump block and field goal block and stuff like that, but kicking it, you're not gonna there's not that much you could get super creative with. So yeah,
That
that's
translates. Yeah.
yes, it does. It translates. I don't think you'll see kickoff. I don't
No.
see you might see punts with no returns, but I don't think
You
you'll see
might you
punt
might see
returns.
kickoffs as well with no returns. Clemson did that. Several other schools did as well. Just sending out a couple of place kickers, kicking off two balls, and just have a returner back there with no coverage team. Returner either lets it go in the end zone or catches the ball. Just to give the place kicking, an opportunity to get work in as well. You
Yeah,
might see that. Certainly no returns though.
yeah, yeah. I also think that that's going to be weather dependent. If you got
Sure.
a wind one direction or another, yeah,
You don't
who
want to set
knows?
them up for failure.
Yeah, you don't want a 40-mile-an-hour wind. One guy's kicking it 18 yards out of the end zone. The next guy can't cross the 50 because it hits
Yeah.
a wall of wind, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But my final, what makes a successful spring game, and I think, it's time to reward the fans. And we've been hard on fans. We blame them for a lot and stuff like that. But there is a solid core of diehard IU football fans who show up to things. And if you put on an event, and I thought IU did a good job last year putting on a spring event. They it sounds like they'll have um, different activities this year as well, and that's what you need to make it fan friendly. You went to Clemson spring game, they had tailgating and a lot of stuff, but IU, it can't just be, hey, come watch us practice.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to do that.
We would,
Um,
but
yes, when I say
we're
nobody,
yeah, we're nobody.
the average college football fan is not going to Bloomington to
Right.
watch
You're right.
an IU football practice. If you're going, you're a diehard IU football fan. So have stuff to bring kids. It's an event meant for families. Bring your kids. 3D photo booth. Make it fun. Um, Run your concessions well, and we'll get to that in a second here as well. There's some big news coming on that way. Just make it an enjoyable experience. They're running stadium tours and all that stuff. They've really, I think, have started to make it an event. And this is what you see. what can work on game day Saturdays? It's a spring game for the games up to. What
Hmm.
what can we try in a controlled environment with maybe 4,000 people, maybe a fifth of what you're normally dealing with, um, and take it to game day Saturday? What do people like? Well, photo booth, stadium tours, different games and events, contests, all that stuff. If they don't work, no, it doesn't matter. You learned it doesn't work. Let's try something new next year. If it does work, cool, awesome. People like it. Um, Little kids will be, hey, mom, dad, can we go down to Bloomington so we could play at the carnival games at IU football? That's how you hook kids, and stuff like that. So make it fan friendly. Hopefully they do, and that's it. Just have fun. That's the whole point. Stay healthy, have fun, and showcase the differences between the end of the Allen era and the beginning of the Signetti era. And if it might be hard to highlight that in certain ways, but you could definitely feel the difference when you're sitting, standing and watching practice. So you should be able to get a glimpse of that during a spring game as well. Final thoughts, TJ?
Yeah, just excited, hopefully, to be able to see Indiana football back on the field and really welcoming in a new era for IU, which we're hoping is as promising as it currently seems. Uh, uh, just a lot of positive buzz and momentum uh, surrounding the change within the program and the culture shift within the program. And tomorrow's just an opportunity to see that on the field and get little individual glimpses of what we could see in the fall. Uh, we just have so little information on this team, which has changed so much, that having a chance to get just a little bit of information is kind of like a thirsty man, a parched man in the desert getting that little bit of water. Um, that's what we're looking for, and just hoping Mother Nature does not rain on IU's parade, which
Oh,
I guess
yeah,
you know tragedy
it's
tragedy befalls us, but we'll see.
yeah. I don't want to call it like a disaster, but it would be a major disappointment. I think,
Disappointment would be
yeah,
accurate.
it would be a major, and it's nobody's fault. It's
No.
springtime in Indiana and all that stuff, and I want to be clear that it's nobody's fault. That's just bad luck, and you have so much excitement and momentum. Even if you could get a half in before weather moves in and stuff like that, so people could see it, I think it'd help.
Yeah.
And even if you play in the rain, before severe stuff falls in and your crowd's kind of lackluster, games on TV. You have a
Hmm.
chance to showcase it, and I think that's the point. Is you're you're trying to change the narrative, and as long as people can see it, it goes a long way changing the narrative. Some news in the IU football world in the last 24 to 48 hours. Two recruits coming in. Blake Thury, who might be my new favorite recruit in the class, plays every position on offense,
Hmm.
plays defense, long snaps. He's one of those Bugs Bunny players, plays every position, track star as well. He's listed as a tight end. He might long snap as well at IU, and that was a good get. And then they landed a major target in safety Byron Baldwin over almost a dozen Power Five schools as well. And then this morning, from a game ops uh, angle, IU hired Levy to improve game day as official food and beverage partner. This has been a bugaboo for fans. We've gotten a lot of complaints from fans and questions from fans over the last since forever, but mainly after that Cincinnati game when they just weren't prepared. Uh, I've heard good things about Levy. They've done huge events uh, Super Bowls, Grammy Awards, U.S. Open, Kentucky Derby, and the Rose Bowl. You can't get bigger than that. Hopefully, it's not U.S. Open tennis prices, uh, but NBA All Star Game, Super Bowl, Kentucky Derby, U.S. Open, Grammy Awards, Rose Bowl. It's now you're dealing with professionals who know what to do. There's many changes. We have the article up on our website now. As well. There's premium area things. It looks like that turn from, in with all due respect to the charities who ran the concession stands, you're not a professional organization who runs concession stands. And now you're bringing
Right.
somebody in. It should streamline things, should make game day a better experience to get people there. I think one of the reasons outside of the product on the field was, why am I waiting 45 minutes to get food or a beer in line and run out of things? So I'm excited for that, to see what that happens. And that's, I think, going to be all IU venues, including Assembly Hall, baseball stadium, and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said the key word there, professional, right? You're you want to be treated and viewed as a big time product. You need to treat yourself and your own product like a big time product,
yep,
and if you want fans to view you that way, you need to put that on.
yep,
Um, and that's what this organization is going to be paid to do. It's a long overdue, intelligent move that should pay dividends quickly. Um, I would think that they have a very clear plan, given their past experience, a very clear plan for how to quickly improve things and have games flowing at a much um, better level as soon as the season opener. You
yeah.
know,
I
you
think it's respectable. Adam has said on Twitter every game, why isn't this one concession stand open? It's always closed, and maybe they'll name the concession stand after him, but hopefully it's open and stuff. It's stuff like that. How do you
right, right.
efficiently use things? Look, if you have a crowd of 10,000, I get it. You're not going to open every concession stand. You're throwing away money for somebody to stand there for 5 hours and not sell anything. But if you're expecting, between 40 and 50,000 people, everything should be open and everything should be humming the right way. And that's where, when IU in 2021 had those expectations, you had near sellout crowds, and you just couldn't handle it logistically. Yeah, it's time. You're playing in the Big Ten and where college football is going. And I know the professional is a dirty word for college sports fans and stuff like that, but it is becoming more of a professional, a big time event. Um, you're not playing in the MAC, you're not playing in a group of five. It's not high school. You're playing in the Big Ten. It's one of the two premier, absolute premier leagues in the sport, and you got to operate like it.
Yep, yep.
So,
Absolutely agree with that.
all right. So hopefully, spring game goes off as planned. Kickoff is at 8 p.m. Will be televised on Big Ten Network, streaming on the Fox Sports To Go app, and then on BTN Plus 24 hours after. Tune in. We'll have TJ, your game day primer, coming out
Yep,
tomorrow with all
yep,
our stories for the week, including this podcast. We'll have a gamer, a wrap up, and then we'll have our after the dust settles over the weekend. Andy Graham is back from Europe, back from England, and he'll come and talk about his thoughts on the spring game and IU football as well. And then later down the week, we'll have Matt Weaver on to talk a little bit of recruiting. And then, man, it's almost time for the 100-day countdown,
right.
our summer previews. There is no off season anymore.
No, no. It's credit to Josh Pate and his podcast. He always refers to it as the off season with the whisper. Um, Yeah, I think that's very accurate. It's very small off and then season. There's always a lot going on, especially now with the spring transfer window. If anything pops in that, we'll cover that as well. So we'll be ready for whatever comes our way, especially looking forward to conversing with Andy about the spring game. Always good to have him on, a fount of knowledge. And maybe we'll ask him a couple questions about his travels as well. Um, but I think it's just a fun opportunity to be able to see IU back on the field under new leadership and get all of our hopes super high. Because what could possibly go wrong?
Everything. Um, some other news regarding the site, TJ. We have teamed up with the College Huddle community. It is a nationwide community of podcasts. They have, I think, the last count was around 68 schools. Um, we'll be partnering with them, have guests with them for opponent podcasts and stuff like that. It's collegehuddle.com, and they do great work. TJ will be on later, to talk some IU stuff on there as well. They'll have a Big Ten podcast. They have our podcast as well. And then there are some people who cover our opponents very well on there as well. Check out their stuff. I know there's an FIU podcast, the Pause Up podcast. Check them out. They have a write up of their spring event as well. Get ready for the season. So that was our big news of the off season. So thanks for joining us. You can follow us at Hoosier_Huddle on X, formerly known as Twitter. Come to HoosierHuddle.com as well. Enjoy the spring game. Hopefully the weather stays away, and kickoff against FIU will be here sooner than people realize.
Yes, sir. Have a good week, everybody.
Yep.